permanent resident. That's good.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أما بعد. As we approach the Hajj season, we usually start to talk about the life and the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Perhaps throughout the rest of the year, we're not engaging much with Ibrahim alayhi salam, but now at this point, at this juncture, we speak a lot about Ibrahim alayhi salam. We speak about all of the lessons from his life that we can take together and benefit from. And there's another reason to speak about Ibrahim alayhi salam right now, specifically. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he is known as the father of the Abrahamic faiths. These are the predominant faiths that we find in the Western culture and tradition where we reside. And everybody, they try to claim Ibrahim alayhi salam. In the Testaments, it's also mentioned that he's the father of the nations. When the Prophet ﷺ, he went to Medina, he saw the Jews of Medina doing something very interesting. He saw that they were fasting on the day of Ashura. And he asked them, or rather he inquired about what they were doing. And he was told that they do this because they believe that this is the day where Musa alayhi salam, he was saved from Fir'aun. And so they celebrate this day. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, وَنَحْنُ أَحَقُّ بِمُوسَى. Rather, we have a greater right to Musa alayhi salam than they have a right to Musa alayhi salam. Why? Before anything else, obviously, it's because Islam came to perfect the religions of these prophets that were changed by their people after them. Judaism, Christianity, these religions were not preserved. They were heavily altered. And Islam came, and from day one it sought to preserve the message with which Musa alayhi salam came. And so in that way, Islam is more reflective of Musa alayhi salam, his legacy, his heritage that he left for us. And secondly, because the Prophet ﷺ, he also informed us that the Anbiya, they are all brothers. They are born from different mothers, however, they are all brothers. And so Musa alayhi salam is the brother of our Prophet ﷺ. You know, today in the culture we live in, especially looking at the conflict that's going on in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine, we can't help but discuss the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, because it's important for us to know that Ibrahim alayhi salam actually belongs to us. When people don't worship Allah the way that he sought to ask people to worship Allah, when they don't behave and reflect the characters and the morals and the ethics that he asked his followers to follow, then they're no longer reflective of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Rather, it is those who preserve the message with which he came, to worship Allah alone. They are the ones who defend his legacy and reflect who he was as an individual. And this is what I wanted to speak to us about. Ibrahim alayhi salam. The thing that Ibrahim alayhi salam reflected more than anything else was a purity of faith. Allah Azza wa Jalla, he says in Surah An-Nisa, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ دِينًا مِمَّنْ أَسْلَمَ وَجْهَهُ لِلَّهِ وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ وَاتَّبَعَ مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا وَاتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ خَلِيلًا. Allah Azza wa Jalla, he says, it's a powerful, powerful surah. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ دِينًا مِمَّنْ أَسْلَمَ وَجْهَهُ لِلَّهِ. Who is better in deen? What does the word deen mean? You know, we translate the word deen to mean religion. But when you study religions in general, you realize that this is not a great definition. The word religion itself is such a fluctuating word. It's such a relative word that changes depending on who you're speaking to. So the Christian, you'll go to him and you'll ask him, what does your religion mean to you? And he says, well, I go on Sunday to church, I dress very nicely, I do all the stuff that's required, I listen to the pastor, the pews are passed around, I donate a little bit of money, and that's his religion. That's what he understands to be the religion of Christianity practically applied in his life. When it comes to many people from the Jewish faith, you'll be surprised, but there are many who are Reformed Jews. Many of them, they claim to be atheists. Say, we don't even believe in God to begin with. For them, the religion of Judaism is conflated with their ethnic identity. We are by blood Jewish, and this is what it means for us to be Jewish. Has nothing to do with believing in God or believing in the prophets or anything of that nature. For many of them, not all of them. So the word religion is a very loose term. For us as Muslims, what does the word deen mean? Deen is a way of life, right? Deen is a comprehensive way of life. When you stand to pray the 5 daily prayers, this is your deen. But each and every single moment between these 5 daily prayers, when you're dealing with one another, when you're dealing with your spouse, when you're dealing with your children, when you're at work, every single thing you do, every single action you take is a reflection of your deen. It's not just on Fridays. It's in every single moment that we live and we breathe. So what is this deen? And how do we perfect this deen that Ibrahim alayhi salam, he taught us? وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ دِينًا مِمَّنْ أَسْلَمَ وَجْهَهُ لِلَّهِ. Who is better in this way of life, in practicing and following this way of life, than the one who submits himself, his face, completely in front of Allah Azza wa Jal? This is beautiful what Allah Azza wa Jal, He says. You know, He says, the word Islam, to be a Muslim, is aslama yuslimu, like you submit, right? Allah Azza wa Jal, He adds something additional here. He says, مِمَّنْ أَسْلَمَ وَجْهَهُ لِلَّهِ. Who is better in religion, who is better in this way of life than the one who submits his face in front of Allah Azza wa Jal? And why does the word, why does Allah Azza wa Jal employ this word here? Why does He have this addition? The thing is, like, let's say you cut off people's heads. You don't physically cut it off. Let's say you take a photo and you only show them everything that's below. Most people look the same, right? Maybe your color is a little bit different. Maybe you're a bit fatter. Maybe you're a bit skinnier. Nothing, these are just aesthetics. The moment you take a look at a person's face, that indistinct body becomes very unique. It becomes very, very distinct. I know who this person is. I know this person's name. I know everything about this person. I know how he behaves. All by what? By facial expressions. Even when we communicate. You know what? The psychologists, they say this verbal communication is only about 20% of your communication skills. The rest of it is facial expressions. And we gain so much from one another through this. This is the most honored part of the body that Allah Azza wa Jal has given us. And this is what we put onto the ground, showing that we submit ourselves completely to Allah Azza wa Jal. Complete submission. If your face is on the ground to Allah, then your arms, then your feet, then your tongue, then your heart, everything has submitted to Allah Azza wa Jal. At least this is what we should be learning from the salah. And what we should be learning from how we submit ourselves to Allah Azza wa Jal. There's another thing that the ulama, they mention. When Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, مِمَّنْ أَسْلَمَ وَجْهَهُ لِلَّهِ, the word أَسْلَمَ يُفِيدُ الْحَصْرِ. It makes your worship of Allah restricted solely to Allah. What does this mean? When we say the shahada, when somebody enters into the fold of Islam, what do they say? La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So La ilaha illallah is in 2 parts. You have La ilaha and then you have illallah. There is no deity worthy of worship, this is the first part, except Allah. This is the second part, right? When we worship Allah Azza wa Jal, we are also affirming that we do not worship anything besides Allah at all, whatsoever. And perhaps it's idols in one context, perhaps it's other people in another context, as the Christians did, or perhaps we worship the means and we are living a very materialistic lifestyle and we don't depend and solely rely and turn to Allah. Ibrahim alayhi salam, what does he teach us? Allah Azza wa Jal, He says in Surah Al-Mumtahana, قَدْ كَانَتْ لَكُمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ فِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ إِذْ قَالُوا لِقَوْمِهِمْ إِنَّا بُرَآءُ مِنْكُمْ وَمِمَّا تَعْبُدُونَ مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ كَفَرْنَا بِكُمْ وَبَدَا بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمُ الْعَدَاوَةُ وَالْبَغْضَاءُ أَبَدًا حَتَّى تُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ. So it's such a powerful ayah. Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying there is a good example for you. In Ibrahim and his people, when they said to their nation, إِنَّا بُرَآءُ مِنْكُمْ, we are free of you. We have no relationship with you. وَمِمَّا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ, and that which you worship besides Allah Azza wa Jalla. كَفَرْنَا بِكُمْ, we disbelieve in you. We disbelieve in your way of life. وَبَدَا بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمُ الْعَدَاوَةُ وَالْبَغْضَاءُ أَبَدًا حَتَّى تُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ. And between us there will be animosity until you worship Allah Azza wa Jal alone. Now this doesn't mean that you are unjust to people who don't believe. This doesn't mean that you oppress them. Quite the opposite. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says in the same surah, لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم إن الله يحب المقسطين. Allah does not prevent you from those who did no harm to you, that you are good to them, that you are just with them. Certainly Allah loves those who are just. But what this does mean is that we disassociate in our deen, in the way we live our life, we disconnect ourselves from everything other than Allah Azza wa Jal. We depend and we rely solely on Allah Azza wa Jal. And then Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ. And this is what's beautiful. The first part of this ayah, it speaks about belief in Allah. And it teaches us how we believe in Allah. We disconnect ourselves from everything and everyone other than Allah, and we solely rely on Allah. وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ. And in our actions, we display ihsan. We reflect perfection and excellence in the way that we behave. Another thing which sets us apart from those people that claim to follow Ibrahim alayhi salam, but in reality they do not follow Ibrahim alayhi salam. How? Because what do you find of these nations? What has their religions become? It's very much about belief. And even that belief is corrupt. But it is not followed up by action. It is followed up by trying to skirt the laws of Allah, or by not following it altogether and believing that salvation lies in another man. Islam came to correct al-mafahim, to correct our understandings. No, in fact, it is not enough. You must display the faith that you have in your heart through your actions, and you must seek to perfect your actions in order to perfect your iman. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. So how do we find this perfection? How do we find this ihsan in the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam? I'll just point to two. There are so many things that we can learn from the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam. I'll point to two things right now that are specifically relevant to us and the context in which we live with the conflicts that are present in the world today. The first of these is the absolute tawakkul that Ibrahim alayhi salam, he had in Allah. I mean, think about it. As a child, he goes and what does he do? He sees the idols. He knows that belief in these idols is wrong. He takes a hammer, he smashes all of these idols. And then to mock them further, what does he do? He takes the hammer and he puts it around the neck of the largest idol. And he says, you ask him. He's the one who destroyed all the other idols. They decide that they're going to put him into the fire. They don't submit. They're not like, yeah, we were wrong. We admit this child was right. They're an arrogant people, bound by ignorant traditions. They say, rather, we're going to burn this little child. We're going to burn this young man. I mean, think about the mentality of these people. Not just, we're not going to kill him. We're not going to just finish the job. No, we want to make a sign out of him. We're going to build the biggest fire that we've ever seen, and we're going to toss him in the middle of it. And they do exactly that. You know, they say the fire was so big, they couldn't go and put him into the fire. They had to catapult him into the fire. Some of the mufassirin, they narrated an amazing story. They say that when he was in the fire, Jibreel alayhi salam came saying, do you require help? Allah's already saved him. He's not burning. He says, do you require help? He says, and again, the authenticity of this is disputed, but we're not speaking about ruling, so it's fine. The scholars, they mention it. They said that Ibrahim alayhi salam, he said to Jibreel alayhi salam, if the help is from you, I don't need it. If the help is from Allah, then yes, however Allah seeks to help. And indeed, Allah Azza wa Jal, what did He do? قُلْنَا يَا نَارُ كُونِي بَرْدًا وَسَلَامًا عَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ. We told the fire to be cool. We told the fire to be cool and peaceful to Ibrahim. I mean, imagine this. Look how much we depend on the means. You know, if following your deen, following your Islam, means that your life will become difficult? For some of us, we don't even take the chance. We don't even take the chance. If you have to come to pray and you hear that perhaps this might negatively affect your job, why take the risk? I'm not even going to try and ask my boss. Not even going to go to my employer. Forget the fact that it's a legal right that I have to have. I just don't want the hassle. Right? And he is in the middle of a fire that is burning so much that people can't even get close enough to it. He has to be catapulted in. And he's saying, I don't need your help. I rely on Allah alone. Really begs the question, how much do we strive in the path of Allah? What does Allah Azza wa Jal He say? وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Whoever fears Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah will create a path out for him no matter what difficulty he is in. وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. And He will grant him provisions from where he did not expect. وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Whoever depends on Allah Azza wa Jal, then Allah is sufficient for him. إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَالِغُ أَمْرِهِ. Allah will make it happen. What belongs to you will come to you. Yes, we take the means, but we don't rely on the means. We don't stray from the path of Allah Azza wa Jal because we feel that we are risking the dunya. We try the best that we can. So that when we sleep, when we put our head to the ground, we have contentment in our heart. We can say, Ya Allah, I tried my best. On top of that, Ibrahim alayhi salam, what else did he teach us? Probably the thing that we talk about most, the thing that is the most prevalent and openly recognized when it comes to Hajj is the udhiyah after Arafah. When you go and you slaughter the animal. This comes from where? This comes from the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam with his son Ismail. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ قَالَ يَا بُنَيَّ إِنِّي أَرَى فِي الْمَنَامِ أَنِّي أَذْبَحُكَ فَانظُرْ مَاذَا تَرَى. It's such a powerful, tough ayah. He says to his son that I saw in a dream, and the dream of the prophets is revelation, so it's true. He has to act on it. I saw that I am to slaughter you, I'm to sacrifice you. Tell me what you think. قَالَ يَا أَبَتِ افْعَلْ مَا تُؤْمَرْ. My father, do what you have been commanded. سَتَجِدُنِي إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الصَّابِرِينَ. Certainly, by the will of Allah, you will find me from those that are patient. Ibrahim alayhi salam, throughout his whole life, he's asked to sacrifice, right? He has to sacrifice when he's a child, his father. His father is kicking him out of the home. A young man, he's being kicked out of the home for what? For saying, I believe in Allah alone. For saying, I believe in Allah alone. إلا قول إبراهيم لأبيه لأستغفرن لك وما أملك لك من الله من شيء ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير. He's being kicked out of the home and he's saying, I'll make dua for you. I'll ask Allah to forgive you. ربنا, oh Allah, عليك توكلنا. Only in you do I rely. Not on my father who's been putting food on the table for me. On you alone, Ya Allah. He sacrificed that. He sacrificed his community. He was asked to sacrifice his wife and his son in the desert. He was asked to slaughter his son and sacrifice him. All of these tests that Allah Azza wa Jal, He gave Ibrahim alayhi salam. Why? So that He could purify him. He could purify his faith, his monotheism, and perfect it. وَاتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ خَلِيلًا. This is beautiful. Allah Azza wa Jal, what does He say? Allah took Ibrahim as Khalil. Khalil comes from the root khalla yakhillu, when you put something through something else. When one thing goes in between another, passes through it. This reflects such a deep, intimate level of friendship and closeness. You're not just a friend, you're not just a companion, you're not just a colleague. You are so close to this. This relationship is so deep. This is what Allah Azza wa Jal, He granted Ibrahim alayhi salam in return for all of the sacrifices that He asked of him. وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلَ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. And so what if you have to sacrifice all of these things? If you have Allah, فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ, then this is sufficient for you. أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِكَافٍ عَبْدًا. Is Allah not sufficient for His slave? I bring this up obviously because we learn from Hajj. We're supposed to implement this into our lives, but I also want us to reflect today in the conflict that rages in the Middle East. Who truly reflects the purity of faith? Who truly reflects a tawakkul in Allah? Who truly reflects sacrificing everything that they know for the sake of Allah, and standing after all of that saying La ilaha illallah, not missing a salah even though the masjid is in rubbles next to you, putting the headscarf on your head when you go to sleep. Why? Because if these genocidal maniacs bomb that building, they don't pull your body out and you're uncovered. For the sake of Allah. Who reflects the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam? Who lays claim to the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam? Other than our brothers and sisters in Gaza, in Palestine, in Rafah, going through the difficulties that they're going through. They have a right upon us. Ibrahim alayhi salam has a right upon us. This ummah has a right upon us. We need to inculcate this into our lives. The values of perfecting our iman, of relying solely on Allah, of being ready to sacrifice what we need to for the sake of Allah. And we need to be there for our brothers and sisters who are doing these very things right now as we speak. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal makes things easy. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal allows us to have this understanding and for us to be able to act upon these words and to stand up as necessary. Allahumma a'izz al-Islam wal-Muslimin wa adhill al-shirka wal-mushrikeen. Allahumma a'izz al-Islam wal-Muslimin wa adhill al-kufra wal-kafirin. Allahumma a'izz al-Islam wal-Muslimin wa adhill al-dhulma wal-zalimin. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في غزة. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في رفح. اللهم انصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم يا قوي يا عزيز. اللهم حرر المسجد الأقصى من أيدي الظالمين الغاصبين. اللهم ارزقنا فيه صلاة قبل الممات. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا واخطأنا. ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا. ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. Before we continue and pray, just two things to mention. One, next week on Sunday, we have Dr. Haifa Yunus, who is coming. She was in Gaza recently, and she's going to be speaking about the experiences that she had and the difficulties that our brothers and sisters are going through. The least that we can do is turn up, show up, learn, show our support. The second thing is that please make dua for Brother Shu'aib Arif and his wife Nasreen. They're the parents of Sister Sana Arif and the in-laws of Brother Waqar. Unfortunately, yesterday they were in an accident near Lebanon, here, not far away, and they're undergoing treatment in the Atrium and Miami Valley Hospital. Allah grant them a speedy recovery. Allah grant them a quick and lasting recovery. Ibadallah, inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'idhukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Udhkuru Allah al-'azima yadhkurkum washkuruhu yazidkum wastaghfiruhu yaghfir lakum wattaquhu yaj'al lakum min amrikum makhraja wa aqimus salah.
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
استووا واعتدلوا استقيموا يرحمكم الله. الله أكبر
الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله أنت السلام.
Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to quickly remind the folks for the upcoming youth field trips. That's the Friday night program from 7th graders through 12th graders. The field trip to Kings Island is the 28th of May. And then the Fajr Challenge Kings Island trip is on May 30th, inshallah, for those who are registered. Those who are interested in joining the board for 24-25, for the youth board, that is ages from anywhere from grade 9 to 12, you can register. The link is in the newsletter for you to register. We have Dr. Haifa Yunus, who's coming to do a session on June 2nd, which is a Sunday, from 6 to 10 p.m. here in the Mural Hall at ICGC. Please attend if you can. We also do have the registration for the weekend school open until June 30. If you intend to have your children attend a Sunday school for next year, please register before June 30 so we can have a head count and know how to prepare for next year. We also have the spiritual Umrah trip with Imam Musa on November 21st. It starts on November 21st. For those who are interested, the flyer in the newsletter has details on how to join. We also have the Harzaq event on Sunday from 9 to 3 p.m. Collection is from today and tomorrow from I believe from 5:30 to 8 p.m. at Intact Cafeteria. Please only drop it at Intact for those who are intending to donate towards that event. And we also have the Quran recitation, Quran halaqa and recitation on Saturdays after Fajr with the Sheikh Mahmoud. It's followed by adults Hifz program from 8 to 10 a.m. on Saturdays. And we have the weekly khatir with Imam Musa every Wednesday after Maghrib, as well as adults class from 5 with Imam Musa in the Mirror Hall every Wednesday. We have the monthly Qiyam with Sheikh Mahmoud on the first Sunday of every month, about 45 minutes before Fajr for those who are interested. As well as Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.